Bienvenidas, bienvenidos. This week we are going to look at Mexica New Year, the Aztec New Year, and we are going to look at the traditions, the history, and what we know about it. But first, of course, this is Latina Literati. This week, all over North America, communities will come together to celebrate the Azteca Mexica New Year, known as Yankuk Xomitl. This is the Nahuatl word for New Year, or the ending of a time period. So there are celebrations throughout North America, and if you're in Northern California, it will be happening the entire weekend in San Jose. I will leave the link in the description box so you can attend if you're in the area. El Año Nuevo Azteca, the Mexica New Year, is a time to come together. It's a time of new beginnings, of a new agricultural cycle, of the new tidings of spring, and it is celebrated by gathering and celebrating in sacred ceremony. Celebrated for 1,000 years, the Mexica New Year is based on the calendar, obviously on the Mexica calendar, and it is the Mexica time, or the counting of time periods, is based on the birth of the deity Huitzol Opocotl, and I apologize if I didn't say that correctly, but Huitzil is hummingbird, and Opocotl is to the left side. The left is associated with the south, so the deity, the sun deity, and also the deity of war of the Mexicas is left or south of the hummingbird. Really interesting that that would be the concept for the god of the sun, the god of war, not unlike Saturn of the Roman pantheon. So the hummingbird, one doesn't associate with maybe the sun, definitely with nature, but it's a special messenger of the gods, definitely in many, many cultures. And so it is the birth of Huitzil Opocotl that begins the new time, that is at the center of the cosmological origin story of the Mexica, and this deity also closes the time. And so now the celebrations and the offerings are to this deity in the Mexica New Year, as candles are lit, as drums are beaten, as sacred dances are performed. It's a time to really think about the new year, think about yourself, your place in the world, and the projects that you have for this new time. In celebration of the Mexica sun god, there will be sunrise ceremonies where Ocotl, pine, the candles are lit, there are drums that are being chanted to, and then there are beautiful sacred ceremonial dances that are offered up. And there will also be different ofrendas, there will be different offerings laid out in gratitude and also in kind of self-reflection of what this new time brings, what the sun god literally ties and allows for the new era, the new year to begin. As with all the springtime New Year celebrations, you'll recall there is Nowruz, the Persian New Year. We have also this year the Hindu New Year. Holi will be celebrated in a few weeks, and it also coincides with the holy month of Ramadan this year. So it's a very spiritual time. It's a time to really self-reflect and to help ourselves and to help others stay on the righteous path, do the right thing, end the genocide. It's important that we come together to do the right thing and to start the new year on the right path. And so that is my prayer for the new year, that we do the right thing. Easter Sunday is also March 31st. And so again, this is a time of hope, a time of love, a time of community, a time of celebration. We need to come together to celebrate in gratitude and to bring our community together to heal and to find the solutions to the problems that we face in this new time, in this new year. With spring, of course, we have the beautiful blossoming of the cherry blossoms and other blooms that remind us that the days are getting longer, the possibilities are there for new projects, and what are we going to do with this time that's been given to us? So I wish you all the best in this spring New Year's celebrations all month long. Happy New Year, Feliz Año Nuevo. And now for my favorite part of the video, the book recommendations. The first book I'm going to recommend today is Álvaro Enrique's You Dreamed of Empires. The title is much more poetic in Spanish. Tu sueño imperios han sido. It's much more poetic. It sounds a little bit flatter in English, but this book is fabulous. I mean, if there is a book that tells you about the collision of two species from two different planets, when the invaders see Tenochtitlan and the splendor that is the center of the Triple Alliance, they are left speechless. They could not imagine, and they describe it in the documents that survive as larger and more developed than any city in Europe. Unbelievable in terms of its ability to grow food in the chinampas, in the incredible, of course, architecture and the beautiful offerings in the mercados. Of course, they also talk about how the priests don't bathe and they smell of the sacrifices. And so there's, the underside as well. But this book really talks about the clash of the titans, cultural titans, because that's what they were at that time. And interesting because Hernán Cortés, for example, is referred to as Malinche's man. So it's so funny because you would think that it would be the opposite, but he's referred to through the name of his translator, which is just a tidbit of what this book shares. And so I really recommend this book if you'd like to look at that moment in history when you have that just clash of two species from two different worlds. Could not be more different in every way. And some would say that it is actually the indigenous people who end up kind of enveloping the Spanish because La Raza, the new race, is born. And we look like we're indigenous because that's who we are. But really interesting book, a lot of nuances. It mentions, for example, the Emperor Moctezuma's sister and Malinche. There's tidbits that they're the ones who understand what this clash means and what it will be, what will occur, almost a foreboding of things to come. So it's worthwhile because of the descriptions, because of the historical notes and nuances that you get to really share and enjoy. So highly recommend this book. It's a great read, and you'll enjoy it and learn a lot. The second book I'm going to recommend is called The Fifth Son. It is a well-recognized book. It's not as new as the first, and it is The Fifth Son, a new story of the Aztecs. Really interesting because even the word Aztec did not exist at the time of the Aztecs, so quite interesting that is a word that is developed as part of the invasion. So again, what was known as the Mexica Empire was known as the Triple Alliance, and you had those indigenous groups that were within it and those that were without it. And it is only by coming to terms with those that are without it, the Tlaxcalas, the Puepuechoras, I'm saying that wrong, but who then come to a treaty, come to an understanding with the invaders that they're even able to take a city like Tenochtitlan. You have millions of people, and yes, you have disease that is decimating whole indigenous groups, but there is no way that a few hundred invaders could have ever taken one of the mightiest empires that ever existed without dividing and conquering, as they say, without going to, as they say, my enemy's enemy is my friend, going to some of the fiercest fighters. The Tlaxcala Pueblo was known as just absolutely fierce, and so it is with their help that they slowly then take over the Triple Alliance areas. But again, this is a great book, The Fifth Son, A New Story of the Aztecs, even though the name Aztec is not Aztec. It's well worth it, and also a bit more history for you if this is something that you'd enjoy. And as always, please check your local library, your local bookseller. We love to support our local libraries, our local booksellers, and we always leave links in the description box below to purchase these books, new and or used, from independent booksellers online, because we want to shop small. We want to support local independent businesses. The third book is actually about orphans from the Spanish Civil War. Oh my goodness. The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetis. All I have to say is I read this book in one evening. I picked it up, meaning to just start it, and I stayed up until 1 a.m. finishing it, because it is the trials, the tribulations, the adventures of these orphans. Their parents were teachers, and how revolutionary is this? They wanted to kind of start like a Montessori school that was not part of the Catholic Church, and the father is shot immediately, the mother is tortured and killed eventually, and the children have to then leave their home in the north and then stay with an aunt in Madrid, and eventually there are lots of different stories going on. Eventually the dictator Francisco Franco invites Texas oil men to help Spain exploit some of its resources, and the plot thickens. So anyway, it's a great book. It's a fast read. It was just really a fun book to read, and I thought, wow, this is a great way to introduce people to some of the nuances of the Spanish Civil War and how many people suffered because of it unjustly, just generations of trauma there. So my heart goes out to the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of all those who were so affected. And I think it shows how horrible these things can be and how we need to stop it. We need to stop the war today in the genocide going on in Gaza. So I leave you with that to contemplate. Thank you so much for joining us on this joint journey. We would love you to subscribe to Latina Literati. We would love to hear from you. What are you reading? What are you doing this spring to celebrate the spring and enjoying these New Year's celebrations? Thank you so much. Con mucho cariño, mucho amor, mucha suerte. Gracias.